Greetings everyone, welcome back to my sketchbook. Something that you probably do yourself in some way or another. I'm kind of a collector of things. Now some things I collect because I like them, and other things I collect because I like to give them away. I'm going to move this out of the way for a moment and I'm going to ramble on about something and hopefully not take up too much time doing so. So you'll notice in the background of most of the videos that I upload, you'll see some fabric hanging back here. Well, this is actually a Tommy Bahama shirt. Now, they call them camp shirts. Other people will call them Hawaiian shirts. But what makes those camp shirts is, well, they're not made in Hawaii. So I think that's why Tommy Bahama doesn't call them Hawaiian shirts. Tommy Bahama will lead me to this next thing. So, for many years, I've collected different versions of Monopoly games. Now, I've actually kind of stopped collecting them because there's so many different versions of them. There are thousands of them, and I've only collected hundreds rather than thousands. But this Tommy Bahama game is really neat. I think it's fantastic. It says here this is the 20th anniversary version of the game. It's pretty neat, but I've never actually played this. So on the inside, everything's still in its packages. Never used it. I probably should. But at the same time, I'm going to tell you a little secret. I don't really play Monopoly, and I don't really like the game Monopoly. I just collected all the different versions of it with something in mind, and that something in mind was to display all the different types of tokens there are, the little pewter tokens that come with them. I want to get like picture frame shadow boxes and display them all. Well, it got a little out of hand, let's just say, and after, hundreds of them, I kind of lost a little bit of interest in collecting the Monopoly games, and that's kind of too bad, weirdly enough. I boxed them up after giving away many of them or trading them or what have you. I boxed them up and they're, well, not doing anything. I'm not going to display those little tokens. Speaking of tokens, I want to show you a couple of things. So these are the gameplay guides for two different versions of Monopoly. Now this one here, this is the Premier Wood edition, considered the luxury edition. It has a wooden case, not like that other thing there, and also this is the Onyx version. Now with the Onyx version, you get a few more tokens. These are the tokens, like so you have the wheelbarrow and the money bag. You have this, which is a cannon, which is kind of neat. I'm going to show you these tokens kind of side by side. You have a horse and rider. They're pretty neat. You have battleships. Pretty cool. You have the irons, which are meant for, ironing clothes. You have, the Scotty dogs. They're kind of neat. You have thimbles for sewing, so you don't have like the needle go through your thumb. You have the top hats. That's exciting. You have these fancy shoes. Ooh, fancy. And then we get to kind of my favorite, which are these cars. Now, I'm a big fan of those cars. I'm going to move these aside here for a moment. All right. Oh, yes. Try not to lose those. Here's one of the original pewter ones that isn't like, lacquer coated or gold plated or what have you. This is just the regular pewter token of the car. That's really neat. So why am I making this video? Well, I recently got something. Now generally with Hot Wheels, I get these and I give them away. But this is kind of special. This is the 90 years celebration of Monopoly. And there's the car, which I think is pretty cool. So I'm going to just sort of doodle some stuff, I guess, in regards to this car. Let's set this aside over here. I'm probably just going to hang that on my Christmas tree, along with a few other sort of things. I'm going to move these aside here. Now, often I will draw from memory, but I think since having this nearby, that could be a fun thing to use as a reference. And then, I don't know, we'll see what happens. So, I have my desk fountain pen. I collect pens as well, and I collect inks, and I like artwork. In the background, you'll see this wonderful duck that was made for me by this artist named Abby, who is an awesome human being. So that's in the background there. Let's see here. Not really sure what sort of angles I want this to be drawn at. Of course, that's a 3/4 front view of the car, which is kind of tilted a little bit more like that, right? Maybe down a little bit. Maybe I could do like a rear 3/4 view. So that could be kind of interesting. Let's see, I'm going to zoom in and lock that down just a little bit. And maybe figure out a way of sketching this. So I'll dip the pen one more time and see what we can do. Now luckily there's a seam here because this was a cast thing, so it would be like put into a mold basically, and yeah, it separates so that you can get the thing out of there in its cast. So I'm going to use that as a split divide point for what I want. I'm not sure why this is here. Maybe that's kind of like another thing for the helmet to kind of bounce against. A lot of these old race cars, from my understanding anyway, were made from like old airplane parts. Some of them would have been gas tanks. You could have probably run into some of these things that were made from old like barrels and stuff too, but I think for the time they were super interested in an understanding of aerodynamics, and maybe they looked at those airplane parts as well. Somebody already invested a great deal of time in making sure that that thing was aerodynamic, and they looked fast and cool anyway, so maybe that was it. I don't know. And when I was a kid, I was fascinated by those magazines that had really cool artwork in it. So HotRod magazines. Let's see here. Manifold sticking out there, maybe running to... This is like a rail going on here. But I think that could also be part of the muffler, and these would be like the manifolds running from there. Maybe, I don't know. I don't know how realistic this is supposed to be with that type of old-timey racer. You can kind of see a little bit of the fender on this side. Flat wheel going there as well. So that's kind of what we got going on with that. We can use some of the shininess and the darkness, kind of differentiate a couple of things. So yeah, 90 years of Monopoly, huh? I think that's kind of interesting. The game's been around for quite some time. I have a 1935 edition of the game. I mean, well, as I said, I have hundreds of Monopoly games. Uh, so, very interesting. What else do I want to see? Actually, let's put a little in here. Well, there's already that other sort of look of it. What about kind of like a top view? That's interesting. I really am not a great hand model for this sort of thing. Well, let's try that. So, let's see here. Again, I'm going with that seam that's there. I'm going to start kind of with that windscreen to kind of split up. Yeah. There's vents on top of the engine bonnet or hood of the car, and maybe a little bit of a hood ornament. Maybe, I don't know. So let these vents, maybe it's good for like letting air in there to help cool it down if it's an air-cooled engine. Scratch out the engine bonnet. The hood of the car. Fenders here. Oh yeah, I think I started rambling on about those car magazines. 1, 2, 3, 4, looks like. 4 manifolds sticking out the side, going to rails of some sort. Yeah, the artwork. Now, one of the most famous sort of, in my mind, artists of that rat rod sort of thing was Big Daddy Roth, Ed Big Daddy Roth. And he had this cool character named Rat Fink, I believe. That's the bottom end of this thing. Okay. A little more curved down that way. Give that seam just a little bit there too. The fenders. So yeah, it's fun to draw things from reference. I'm just going to put in a little bit of the anti-super shine darkness to indicate that perhaps there's curves in there as well. Along the side here, there's a little bit of there. Darkness on there. Now, I don't know if those are supposed to be exhaust here. It's funny to think that some of those old cars, they would be well under 50 horsepower. A lot of them would have been. And anytime someone would get behind the wheel of one of these things, I mean, they were risking their lives anyway. They could have been airplane mechanics, or they could have just been people to collect parts at a junkyard And yeah, it was pretty risky stuff. And let's see. So that's roughly that thing. Maybe I should do one more sort of look at this. The underside is kind of interesting. Okay, well, while I'm doing something, let's doodle that. So we got a wheel here. The inner hub. Make it roughly there. Or maybe I should tilt it a little bit more so you can see a little bit more of this, the side of the car. You don't really get much of the front of the car. There's no bumper on this thing. Windscreen. Kind of lose some of the engine bonnet back there. These manifold, if indeed that's what they are. Now for the underside. Well, just a flat wheel back there. Just like that. The inside of the passenger compartment is just a little bit of a tube of sorts. Add a little bit of darkness back underneath there, some shade. And sort of tighten up some of these lines a little bit. But that is what the sketch is all about anyway, is just to kind of get the shapes of things. You don't need to have perfect detail. Unnecessary for your sketchbook. I mean, you can put in as much detail as you feel like. Let me put it that way. All right. Well, that's three sort of different versions. We have whatever that is, right? And then we have this. Right. Then we also have this, which is not a typical way of looking at that car. I'm going to set this aside. And you know what? Let's spin this around because I now have an idea. So in the style of like Big Daddy Roth and his rat fink, let's try to draw a hot rod version of this. Now, I don't know if it's necessary. You know what? I could probably just, yeah, let's go back around. I will draw it right here. Okay. So I'm not really going to use that perfectly because, well, this is going to be more of a cartoon kind of thing. I think in my head I want there to be almost like a horse rearing its head. And the tires, actually, let's save that curvature of the tires mainly for the back tires, which will exaggerate. I don't know if we need to have the suspension showing or not. The grill up front, a little bit of a hood ornament, whatever that could be. Have this kind of curve a little bit, but we also want to have this windscreen. We'll have the manifold sticking out here. There are 4. And maybe these rails down here are, although I don't know for sure, let that be the exhaust. This is where I'm going to put in the back tires. I have those fenders. The passenger compartment here, including the tunnel up top here. Let's go with the exhaust leading out this way. Move this over just a little bit. These could be like Mickey Thompson Super Slicks or something, I don't know. But for fun though, we'll say that this is, instead of Mickey Thompson's, these are Ruffin Monopoly and then over here we can say Slicks. Which would be white letter, but it doesn't matter. Okay. We'll have the other tire back here as well, but more in shadow. So, as part of the rat fink look, let's put in Monopoly guy. But how do I want him to look? Well, generally has to be kind of oversized, right? We'll put in his little nose here. I feel like I've drawn a lot of these old-timey mustaches. So I drew the Pringles can mascot guy in a video, as well as the Thinker for the beginning of Movember, which is kind of part of this thing. You see that? There's an old-timey mustache guy on that too. So anyway, that mustache is wild. Let's have mouth open. We'll do the bottom row of teeth just a little bit. We can add more detail in after. How do we want? Now the Monopoly guy has kind of dark eyes. We'll add a little bit of detail, but we'll just kind of scratch it in a little bit as we go. Now I don't know if I want to put racing goggles, although I think that would look kind of neat. What kind of eyebrows do we want to have? So on this car, he's kind of surprised looking. I think that looks kind of neat. Oop. Let me set this over here then, if it's not going to stand up. Let's make it sort of determined. How about that? So we'll have this eyebrow kind of down a little bit, so he's working, and this one, oh, he's having a good time. So one kind of raised, one kind of lowered, kind of a round head, cool ears. Give him some hair on the side here, some hair on the side here. Now, his hat. Let me get a look at this. So I have these other tokens. I don't know if there's a true front or back to these. That's interesting. What if we have it kind of blowing off because he's really ripping. Yeah. So we're going to do the underside here first. Top hat's blowing off. Maybe he's screaming Yahoo or something, or, well, he's going by go. How about that? Also, part of the tradition, I guess, would be here he would be holding onto the steering wheel. With one hand. Let's say he has like a scarf too. part of our little sketch. And then out here, we'll have another hand. Because usually, for some reason, just because of all the effort involved in building the car itself, as an afterthought maybe, you put the shifter on the outside of the car because there's not enough room on the inside. I have no idea. But let's just say that's the reason why Ed, Big Daddy Roth, would sometimes do this shifter, almost like a Hurst shifter on the outside of the vehicle. So a slight curve in, slight curve back. So not necessarily 4 on the floor. That he would barely fit in the car. They knew enough that when they were building these things to try to make them lightweight, now, I did say, perhaps, I'm going to set this over here, that I should put racing goggles on him. I'm not sure. Oh, actually, let's do a couple of puffs of exhaust out here, almost like, not really a mushroom cloud, but reminiscent of that sort of style. Okay. Do a slight amount of outlining. I'll really just stay around the outside of it, so let it continue to just be a sketch. I don't have to refine anything with this. Yeah. Shadow. Got a cool little mustache going on here. That whole time I've been thinking, am I going to put racing goggles on him or not? I know there was some controversy at one time where people were wondering if he had a monocle or not, much like the Peanut, Mr. Peanut guy. Well, he doesn't, but in different versions of the game, you could have him inspecting things rather closely with an eyepiece. So, yes and no. Let me see here. What else do I need to do? Yeah, I think I will put a version of racing goggles on him. I don't really want to, but we're going to pretend that he's that old-fashioned timey racer. And this would be like strapped on. And then to show that he's wearing some lenses, we'll put some glare across there. Let's close out the mouth a little bit by filling it in just slightly. Let's move this out just a little bit. So, a little bit of detail here, a little bit here. Just putting in some vents. And dip the pen. And for fun, let's just say 90 years. Dip the pen. Clean up some of this. And then here. Well, that's not so bad for something that I didn't plan. But I just thought it was kind of neat to see a Hot Wheels car that looks like one of my favorite Monopoly pieces. And, you know, I think that's kind of neat. That'll look kind of cool on my tree or what have you. So, yeah, I think that's going to be kind of it. I know I said I didn't really want to add detail, but sometimes when you're the person holding on to the pen, you determine how much time you want to put into something. I think this could be a neat thing to do a more effort version of, because I think that's kind of a neat thing. Let's go with a little bit of a groove around here. All right, well, I think that's it. I don't think I need to go any further than that. That's kind of what I was modeling it all off of. And this. Well, folks, thanks for hanging out. And come back again. We'll do some other wild and wonderful things. And yeah, that's it. Ciao for now.